بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أرحب بكم إخوتي الكرام مجدداً في استئناف الجلسة الأخيرة لهذا المؤتمر. متحدثنا الآن هو السيد تان، نائب الرئيس لشؤون أمن الطيران في مجموعة مطارات شانغي. السيد تان له خبرة حوالي 12 سنة قضاها في جهاز الشرطة في سنغافورة، وهو عضو في مجلس المطارات العالمي لإقليم آسيا والباسيفيك، وقد شارك في العديد من الفعاليات الإقليمية والدولية. الكلمة الآن للأستاذ تان.
Good afternoon, everyone. I recognize I'm the last speaker for the day, and I thank all of you who are present here, still in the room, to stay back and listen to the presentation. Before I start, I'd like to thank GACA for inviting me here to speak, and I'd also like to thank and congratulate the organizing committee for a very well-organized event. If you can join me, I'd like to thank them for the well-organization. Okay, I've been invited to come here and share with you on aviation security and how it's being run and implemented in Singapore. As an airport operator, I will share with you the airport operator context and perspective of aviation security. Okay, before I start, let me just give you a quick introduction of Changi Airport in case some of you do not know. Singapore Changi Airport started in 1981 with Terminal 1. We progressed to Terminal 2 in 1990, and in 2008 we have a third terminal. And given the rise of the low-cost carrier, we decided to build a budget terminal in 2006. The total capacity by then was about 70 million. However, the growth of the LCC was so fast and so intense, we decided that we cannot continue in that manner, and our budget terminal was torn down, in fact, last year, September, in place of a new terminal, Terminal 4. And with that, the new terminal itself is going to be a capacity of 16 million, and that will give a total capacity increase from 70 to 80 million by the time we open up in 2017. A bit about Changi Airport. The Changi Airport Group, which is my company where I work with, actually operates and manages the Changi Airport. It was corporatized on 1st July 2009. So in some sense, we are operating like a private company, but we are still owned by the government. Changi Airport has collected over 420 awards since we opened up in 1991 to 2012. In 2012, last year, we actually a 50 million mark in terms of passenger handling. We have 300 over 1,000 flight movement, 1.81 million tons of cargo, and for 25 straight years, we've been voted as the best airport in the world by the Business Traveler. And I'm glad to announce that this year, since 2010, we won the Skytrack Awards. This year itself, we again was voted as the world best airport for the Skytrack Awards. Okay, again, airport in today's context is not like last time, like a bus stop for air passengers. In fact, airport is almost like a city on its own, and there's a lot of fun things to do at the airport. For us, we have slides and we have a lot of theme gardens to make our passenger feel relaxed, comfortable, and happy. Okay. Before I move into the presentation proper and talk about more on aviation security, there are two things that I want you to think about. Why do we have aviation security? Who is it for? I think the basic answer is passengers. And who pays for aviation security? Is it the state? Is it the airline? Is it the airport? Or is it the passenger? Again, the answer is the passenger. So remember this thing. Aviation security is for passenger. Passenger pays for aviation security. In that context, it's then important to make sure that whatever we set up for aviation security and support aviation security must serve the passenger well. Every country has its own way of managing and implementing aviation security. So whatever I'm going to share with you in terms of the Singapore experience have to take in the context of how we actually structure aviation security, and it may be different from you, but there might be lessons or there might be learnings that you think that is useful and applicable. Okay, the very first thing about aviation security is the fact that we have to have the legal ability to implement, maintain it, and to basically apply whatever we need to know and maintain that sanctity of that aviation security. So in Singapore context, we have the Air Navigation Act as the primary legislation to regulate civil aviation. But within this Act itself, we have a security order which basically gives powers to the authority to make sure that all the civil service or the civil aviation requirements in terms of security can be enforced. And of course, following that, we have all the various national programs as required under ICAO, your National Civil Aviation Airport Security Program, and all these various operators program. So, who manages aviation security? Basically, there are three levels. At the policy level, we have the National Civil Aviation Security Committee comprising of the ministry representative and the government regulators. At the execution level, we have the Airport Security Committee, which is chaired by the police. In Singapore's context, the police is the appropriate authority for aviation security. And then the members are formed from the Civil Aviation Authority, the Ministry of Home Affairs, Airport Police Division, the airport operators, as well as ad hoc members comprising of airlines as well as ground operations. And of course, at the operational level day-to-day, we have the airport police being the delegated appropriate authority to run the day-to-day business. Okay, as I mentioned, even though the airport police is the designated appropriate authority for aviation security, but the Minister for Transport is actually responsible for aviation security in Singapore. That makes the structure very interesting because you will find that you have two ministries sitting at the government level. MOT, Ministry of Transport, and the Ministry of Home Affairs, where the police is in. Why is this important? If the aviation security is solely handed over to an agency that is very, very strong on security, you will find that the security measures that is put in place could be very overbearing and can be very costly for the passengers. On the other hand, if it's purely a transport focus, then it could focus so much on facilitation that you might compromise security. So in this context, there is a joint effort in both ministries to make sure that, one, we apply the most appropriate and suitable security systems and technology as well as processes for our passenger. Two, we must make sure that the cost of security implementation is managed. Therefore, in today's context, with CAG running the airport, sometimes we have to go back to both ministries to discuss with them, negotiate with them on what is the most appropriate security systems and processes that we can implement to maintain that efficiency processing of passengers as well as maintaining the cost for the air hub. Aviation security is not something that the airport does on its own, neither is it a responsibility just the airline per se. In fact, there are many stakeholders to ensure the security for passenger as well as the airport. So in Singapore, we practice what we call as a team airport concept. I know at different countries, you have different stakeholders who have different roles. So I'm going to take a short while to tell you who are the stakeholders and what roles do they play. In Singapore, the Airport Police Division maintains the law and order and prevention and detection of crime, and they are designated as the appropriate authority. In short, they take care of state function, law and order. They take care of aviation security function as to provide the oversight. Civil Aviation Authority becomes a representative to the Civil Aviation to ICAO, and also work very closely with the Airport Police Division in setting the aviation security policy in Singapore. The key thing for them is to maintain the competitive air hub status for Singapore. Immigration Checkpoint Authority, they control and protect the borders of Singapore. Very interesting, I think this is a context whereby we also involve the Singapore Armed Forces in the joint patrol of Changi Airport. What happened is that these are our counter-terrorism forces. They project high presence, but at the same time, it's conducted together with the police to make sure that there is a civil application to it. It doesn't look so threatening. And then, of course, we have our airline operators. Changi Airport is solely responsible for the implementation of all the airport security program, and we need to comply with the security directives set down by our appropriate authority. And we also provide all the infrastructures, security systems, equipment for the airport. Again, in Singapore, there's a different context. So who does the actual security? We have systems, we have regulations, we have stakeholders. The people who are doing the day-to-day screening, your access control, your checks, and everything else are provided by what we call as auxiliary police force. In Singapore, the police does not do the job. In fact, they grant license to private security company to conduct this operation. In our context, there are only 3 licensed companies that are able to provide aviation security services because they have been trained, certified, and authorized to do this. Okay. Now that you have an understanding of the context and how we run aviation security in Singapore, so what are the approaches and programs in Changi? Okay, as in all business operation, we have a vision. The key thing for us is that aviation security, like I said, is for the passenger, is paid by the passenger. It is important for us to understand that any application must be long-term and must be sustainable. And over time, security implementation must be risk-based. It must be applied according to what your threat and risk it is for your country as well as for the operating environment. And the end outcome is that you want to have an efficient process for the passenger. Aviation security should not have a single point of failure. So it's very important for us to take a layered approach as well as an onion ring style of protection. And again, you know that airport has different kind of restricted area where different kind of people operate in. Therefore, different and appropriate kind of application of security must be in place to address those areas. You don't want to do, for example, going to public area, you actually put in a passenger screening style kind of security system. It does not commensurate with that. Sorry. Okay, so let me go back. In terms of layered security, Changi actually has a 4-layer security system whereby we designate 4 different layers of location. One, the first level is the public area. The second level is what we call as a restricted area, the transit area. The third layer is the restricted area airside, or you call it apron. And the 4th level is basically the gate hold room and the aircraft. How does it look like schematically? So you'll find that the public area is out there, the second layer is the transit, third layer is airside, and 4th layer, of course, is the aircraft and the gate hold room. There's a difference to it because in Singapore, we practice gate screening, or what we call as decentralized screening. So how do we make sure that aviation security is properly carried out? I'm going to run down a list of aviation security systems that we have in Changi before I move into sharing some of those best practices that we have that you can maybe apply or maybe glean from it and see how it applies to your context. In terms of passenger screening, we have a 5-level inline whole baggage screening system, and we also conduct pre-board screening and 100% transfer screening. For access control, we rely on a biometric access control system with an audit trail. This is also unique to us. We actually conduct a 100% background check on all persons and vehicles, on all persons applying for a permit to enter the airport. This is not only just applying to full-time and permanent employee of the airport, but also to visitor. So any visitor who wants to come to visit our restricted area, you have to submit an application, which will, depending on which area you want to go, it may take up to 7 to 14 days for background check before you are allowed to enter the restricted area. We also conduct 100% vehicle check going into the restricted area. Okay, the next one I think is a very interesting topic of late. People are talking about insider threat. But this is something that we have always been doing in order to make sure that we don't have people bringing in other unknown person into the airport. And we also want to make sure that the airport staffs are responsible for whoever they bring in. We actually have an online airport pass application system whereby only certified persons can have access to. So in other words, you are responsible and we can trace back to who are the ones who apply for airport pass for visitors, and as well as your staff as well. And basically, all the airport pass, airport permit that we actually issued out must be attached with a biometric, and then in the worst case, we actually have escort by airport staff. And sometimes we even ask the auxiliary police officer to escort the person. Perimeter protection, we have a double layer fencing. We also have recently applied PIDS, Perimeter Intrusion Detection System. This is called Agile Fence. In fact, this is the latest state-of-the-art PIDS system that we have. Later on, I will share a bit more, and I have a video to show you how this system looks like and what it does. More importantly, I can only tell you that this system is more superior than a lot of systems that we investigated because it provides pinpoint accuracy of the intrusion point. We also have a 24/7 perimeter patrol as well as fence check. In terms of general surveillance, we have CCTV all around the airport, including perimeter with, some of them have video content analysis. We have security patrol by the airport security personnel that is under the charge of CAG, as well as we have joint patrol by the dock unit, the police, as well as army. And of course, we apply a guard tour to system to make sure that all the various points that are of interest to us have been checked and surveyed by our security staff. And finally, what is very important is a strong security culture. For security culture, we bring people, anyone who comes on board to work in Changi Airport, you are given security awareness briefing and video screening for all, because we recognize that not everybody has the same educational knowledge, so sometimes a picture says 1,000 words. We continuously conduct security seminar and exhibition, and we even have a security incentive scheme. What does this mean? Basically, we say that every member of the airport plays a very important role to ensure the safety of the passenger as well as the airport. So for those staff members who actually highlighted something or detected something that of security concern that averted something, we actually give them a cash reward. To have good security, we also must have a very good quality control system. First of all, we have a very strong oversight by our appropriate authority. Within CAG, we have a FSEC framework that leverages not only just on my aviation security team. I only have an outfit of 11 people in my team, small team, managing a big airport, but we rely on all the resources we have within the company to conduct audits for us. So that actually extends our ability to do quality control and yet reduces the resources required. Competency development, we have a systematic training program, annual certification and recertification. And why is also a key success factor for us in terms of our ability to detect threat items at our pre-board screening is the pre-employment test for X-ray operator. Why do we do this? We recognize that not everybody has a keen eye to detect things from the X-ray machine. It's not easy to read. I couldn't pass the test. We say that we set a benchmark of 80%, 80 marks to pass your pre-test, and I've done it 3 times, and my best score is 76. So again, it only reflects that people with certain attitude can be an X-ray operator. And for that purpose, we select those people who can pass the pre-test, send them for training, and we give them a higher allowance for that particular role. And finally, we need close collaboration among all the airport partners to make Changi a safe place. Okay, the effective aviation security system requires 3 key things. Your men, the organization is only as strong as your people. The method, how do you conduct your processes and your security solutions? And finally, machine, the technology that you apply must improve the way things are done and help your officers or your staff do the job better. And there is a need for always looking for continuous improvement and innovation to improve your system. Okay, I'm going to spend the next few slides sharing on some good practices that we have. If you have questions on those kind of implementation, feel free to ask me later on. Okay, like I mentioned, there is given the fact that aviation security has become more and more important, and then there's also a cost increase as well, we need to be more productive than before. So the use of technology becomes very important. For example, we use thermal sensor at our arrival gate, basically to aid our staff. In the past, we used to deploy a guard at every door. but because of the thermal sensor that is set in the manner, we now have one guard for every 3 doors. We also use other systems to help us detect fraudulent boarding pass. This is the PIDS. I'll show you a video after this. Again, we mentioned that facilitation is very important. We are doing gate screening, which means that unlike a centralized screening whereby a passenger cannot U-turn out back to check in and deposit things like, for example, prohibited item or their LAG items, we offer a service collaboration with the Singapore Post, Postal Service to help them deliver some of those items that they want to bring back. For example, you may have a switch, for example, a jackknife that is of sentimental value. It may not be seized because it's not a prohibited item under ICAO list, but it's sentimental to you, so we can allow them to post back. We also use a computerized system to do assignment of personnel to handle all the pre-board screening so that we actually improve that communication. In the past, you know, the radios, in the control room, we have people talking about over the phone and radio, and then you need a lot of people managing it, and it's like a fish market. But with this one, everyone holds a handphone, messages get sent, they send it back, and we know where the officers are, whether they are deployed, are they on time or not on time. And we also have a very effective QC system, not only have a strong oversight from the police itself, we also conduct a lot of checks on a monthly basis. And because of that strong oversight for aviation security, we are glad, in fact, we are very proud to undergo the second USAP audit by ICAO, and there was no finding. We achieved 0 finding, and we were told that that's the best result ever. Finally, it's very, you know that aviation security has grown more important. The terrorists and those perpetrators become more and more intelligent, and they also try the system and try to break the system as much as possible. Since 9/11 onwards, we have different series of kind of attack. And that means that more and more security implementations were put in place. Again, those have a lot of consequences again. There is impediments to facilitation, there is a cost to the industry, and in some way, if you're going to conduct so many series of checks, the whole airport is going to come to a standstill. Therefore, there's a very important need to balance that with a sustainable industry goal and need. So to all those here, whether you're airport operators, your government officials, or even technology providers and things like that, this is something that we all need to recognize. With changing aviation landscape, there is a continuous need to balance that requirement as well as the industry goal. We are moving towards more risk-based security, and then basically the whole idea is that we want to use targeted approach to address security risks. And it also allows us to allocate scarce resources. We know resources are not free, they actually are limited. So what do we do in Singapore? We have a risk-based security, we call it the Singapore style, we call it TOPSIS, Threat-Oriented Passenger Screening Integrated System, by which we're not looking out for all the bad things. I mean, of course, that's what we require as baseline. But more importantly, we try to look out for the bomber. How do we do this? Basically, TOPSIS relies on frontline staff because the best thing to do, we know that it's very expensive to train profiler. It's not easy to get profiler and so on and so forth. So what we do is that we use behavioral analysis as a method to detect people of suspicious nature. And we know that the way to do it is that who interacts with the passenger is at check-in, transit, gate screening, and departure immigration that there is a highest interaction level. And during the interaction, this is where we can discover whether the person is of dubious nature. Why do I say this and why do we rely on this? You notice that across the various incidents in terrorism attack, one of the key things, the common thing that actually psychologists realize is that a person, no matter how well trained you are, when you are to commit an act, for example, a suicide bomber, the key thing that changes is that your state of mind changes, your reaction changes, and things like that. Abdul Muttalib was found sweating quite a lot when he was in the toilet, and a cleaner saw it, reported it, but nothing was done. So what we are trying to say is that if we can detect abnormal behavior, a reaction. Now, for example, if you're a suicide bomber, you're going to do something, somebody come and ask you a question, suddenly you don't realize you can't answer. Something is wrong with this person. So we are relying on our frontline staff to try and detect those kind of abnormal behavior. I will not go too much into this. You can look at the slide and see these are the things that the frontline staff are looking out for. Yeah. Sorry, I'm running over time. Okay, this is the part whereby at immigration pre-board screening and whole baggage, if the person is detected to have strange behavior, we will pull them up for enhanced screening. The key advantage at the end of the day is that TOPSIS is a behavioral analysis tool and it's resource neutral. I do not add new manpower to the whole system. In fact, I rely on existing manpower.
أطلب من السيد المتحدث إنهاء
Yeah, okay.
شكرا. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Finally, there's a need for a balance for security and facilitation. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry I overran, I think, yeah.
أشكر السيد ألنتان شكراً جزيلاً. والآن أترك المجال للأسئلة سواء للمحاضرة الأخيرة أو لأي محاضرة أخرى. في نهاية أعمال هذا المؤتمر أيها الحفل الكريم، بالنيابة عن اللجنة العليا المنظمة للمؤتمر بالهيئة العامة للطيران المدني بالمملكة العربية السعودية، أتوجه بالشكر الجزيل لله سبحانه وتعالى ثم لكم لحضوركم ومشاركتكم في هذه الفعاليات. كذلك نرفع الشكر والتقدير لمقام مولاي خادم الحرمين الشريفين يحفظه الله لصدور الموافقة الكريمة على عقد هذا المؤتمر. وفيما يلي أود أن أستعرض معكم التوصيات التي توصل إليها المؤتمر. أولاً، تؤكد المملكة العربية السعودية على تطبيق التوصيات والقواعد القياسية الصادرة من المنظمة الدولية للطيران المدني والخاصة بأمن الطيران المدني. ثانياً، يشيد المؤتمر بالجهود التي تبذلها المملكة العربية السعودية في التصدي لأعمال التدخل غير المشروع للطيران المدني في إطار مكافحة الإرهاب، حيث أن المملكة كما هو معروف عضو مؤسس للمنتدى العالمي لمكافحة الإرهاب وصاحبة المبادرة بالتوصية بإنشاء المركز الدولي لمكافحة الإرهاب الذي تم إنشاؤه بالاتفاق بين المملكة العربية السعودية ومنظمة الأمم المتحدة. ثالثاً، يوصي المؤتمر بضرورة التركيز على توعية العاملين في مجال أمن الطيران، توعيتهم بالمعاهدات والاتفاقيات الدولية المتعلقة بالاعتداءات على أمن وسلامة الطيران المدني من خلال تكثيف الدورات التدريبية في هذا المجال والتعاون مع المراكز المتخصصة التي تعقد هذه الدورات. رابعاً وأخيراً، يوصي المؤتمر بتشجيع تطبيق إجراءات مبدأ نقطة واحدة للتفتيش في مطارات المملكة بالاتفاق بين الدول الراغبة بذلك، وذلك بهدف تسهيل حركة المسافرين العابرين. شكراً جزيلاً. والآن الرجاء التفضل بحضور بالمشاركة في تناول وجبة الغداء في هذه الجهة. شكراً جزيلاً.